date is May 26, 2026, and the time is 6:31 p.m. I hereby call this meeting to order of the Community Redevelopment Agency Board of the City of Groveland, Florida. Dan Corsi will lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag for which
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Travis, will you please call the roll?
Yes, ma'am. Chair Keith Keogh. Vice Chair Barbara Gaines.
Here.
Board Member Stephen Shakovsky.
Here.
Board Member Michael Jaycox.
Here.
Board Member Amy Jo Carroll. Board Member Matthew Ballman. Board Member Daniel Corsi.
Here.
Ex officio Commissioner Anthony Sabatini. Interim City Attorney Benjamin Schaefer.
Here.
Interim Community Development Director Andrew Landis. C.R.A. Manager Frank Cassione.
Here.
C.R.A. Consultant Laura Smith. Sergeant at Arms Chief Sean Ramsey, sorry. And Recording Secretary Travis Jackson. Here.
Thank you, Travis. We have a quorum.
Barbara was running through that agenda. We were going to be out by 7 o'clock.
Thanks. I apologize. It's a lot of traffic between here and Altamont, our little thing we had over there. Travis, will you please read the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. March 23rd, 2026, C.R.A. Board Meeting Minutes.
Okay, board meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, let's go ahead and take the roll.
Yes, sir. Board Member Corsi, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Jaycox, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Shakovsky, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gaines, how do you
Aye.
vote?
Oh, aye.
Chair Keogh.
Aye. Moving on to presentations, we have a presentation from South Lake about South Lake Avenue streetscape and stormwater project. Mr. Calasconi?
Good evening, Chair and board members. My pleasure to present tonight on a few of these projects. I'm used to standing up, so I'm going to try to behave my Italian ways and, and not move around too much in the chair. The first item this evening is the South Lake Streetscape and Stormwater Project. Wanted to give a quick overview. Folks it's been a while maybe since you've seen these slides, and then we'll go into some of the actual notes on where we are with that project effectively. So the first slide just orientates the folks watching or haven't seen this for a while. Lake David up at the top of the screen, and then South Lake Avenue and Cherry Street. That's essentially the area contained in the project. You'll see at the top next to South Lake Avenue, there's some sidewalk. There's also some stormwater. This grant is basically, it's a three-part project for funding. We've got grant coming from FDEP, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, stormwater money, and the Florida CDBG from Florida Commerce. It's about a 50-50 split between C.R.A. funds and those two grant sources. I can answer questions, but I will try to keep it somewhat brief for y'all. There's one other slide, just showing a little bit more detail. We're going to have the brick paver look, and then also with the sidewalk improvements for folks to have a more accessible route along that path. Let's see there. We did receive the authorization to use the funding from the Florida Department of Commerce, so that was received on the 21st, which was the last green light we needed on that one. It is a somewhat bureaucratic process to get able to break ground on these projects. So there's historical review, environmental review of all different scales and so on. So there was somewhat of a bureaucratic process to get through that, but what I can tell you tonight is we're through it. Okay, so the next step is basically I'm working with the contractor to finalize the contract amendment we need. I'm going to take that to y'all on the 15th at the city council, and then the intent is to issue a notice. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, no? Louder? A little louder?
Pull it towards your mouth there.
Okay, sorry about that.
There you go.
So the intent is to take that to the 6:15 council meeting. So that'll be the contract price amendment, which will allow us to give the contractor a notice to proceed for July 6th, which will be after the Lake David fireworks, just for safety reasons and also because the brick is taking some time to arrive. The materials should be here pretty much in about 4 weeks is the lead time. So we had hoped to start earlier, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to tear up and then have thousands of people, transiting. We just want it to be safe. So at that point, we'll be in good shape for, proceeding with the project. We'll have to deal a little bit with the summer rains and so on, but we're feeling pretty good. I don't want to belabor that project because we have other ones, but I'm certainly able to answer questions if there's anything that folks have. We okay? Okay. So I'll move. Question? Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
On these plans, you're showing 6 catch basins?
I think that's the stormwater, correct? Yes.
Right.
Yep.
For the stormwater?
Yes.
And you're basing the 6 on what study?
I honestly took this project over 2 weeks ago, so I cannot answer that, but I can get back to you with that. We did have, half has been the engineering team on this from the beginning, and as I understand it, that gentleman is also working on our stormwater master plan, so I think we're in good shape, but I can definitely get you more information on that. I know the stormwater structures have been purchased, they're on site and ready to go, but I do understand we have a pretty complicated stormwater system here because of the various divides of where the water has to flow. So again, I can get you more answers, but I don't have the answer for you off the top of mind.
Okay, if you could get me the general specification page, that'll
Okay.
explain most of my questions to me.
Okay, you
Thank
got
you
it.
very much.
Yep, you got it.
Can you refresh my memory as to how this contractor was chosen for this particular job?
This was, and again, I'm relatively new to the project, but this was a design-build agreement that had happened, I think it's maybe 2 years ago, but this contract was basically awarded, probably through the RFP process, as I recall, with the 2 steps, so designing and then building it. So basically, as opposed to design, bid, build, this was a design build. So basically, at this point, we're just sharpening the last of the details, which included some material changes due to truck traffic. We've got some conduit that needs to be put in place for lighting. Those are the small things that we're trying to fine tune just before we finalize, but we're actually going to be going to recommend the guaranteed maximum price that was originally in the contract. So really, not much has changed except for one add-on issue right now and a little bit of negotiation just to make sure that the materials arrived on time.
Yeah, I was just really trying to find out if it was an RFP or sole source.
It was an RFP, as I understand.
Okay,
To my
all right.
best recollection, it was an RFP. It was awarded to this design-build firm, and that's how we got here today. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Could you give me a completion date?
Yeah, hopefully in the fall, but by early December. 12/3 will be the final completion date. It is a little longer than originally anticipated. It was one of the negotiation points, but with, the materials coming later, the summer rains being a potential, and a little start after the 4th of July celebration, it is a reasonable time expectation, I believe. But the contractor is on board to get this thing done just as quick as possible, and so is the city. So I guarantee you, we will push this and do everything we can to wrap it up in the fall. But, I'm a straight shooter, and we're going to give them 150 days to final completion.
I mean, the reason I'm asking that is because we had a deadline of originally June 30th, and we got an extension. Is that going to be within the extension time?
Here's where we stand with that. So we do have the extension till September 30th, but realizing that this project is going to push past that, we've spoken with the state. As soon as we get that notice to proceed to the contractor, we're going to provide a copy of that to the state. And I've worked with the state in many jurisdictions on these. That's our good faith showing that we're going to get this done. And they are amenable to giving us that next extension. So by 12/31, this thing will be wrapped up and paid for, and the state understands that.
Yeah, just to refresh our memory, the first extension was to June 30th. The second extension was to September 30th. And there was a little warning that went along with that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And now we're saying that they say it's okay for us to, we have that in writing, that we can extend it till the 30th of December?
We need the extension to 9/30, has to be approved first. And it's through every step except for the final signature. At that point, we can then ask for the next extension, which will take us, we're going to go to 12/31 to the end of the year. Part of that is we have to go that far because we have to submit the reimbursement request, and even if we wrap up in early December, we need that time. What we did was actually, and I'll introduce Noah later, but Noah Robles is our new coordinator. Noah and I got together, and I dispatched him to wrap up another grant that we were outstanding with Florida Commerce. Part of the reluctance from Florida Commerce was because we were outstanding on another grant, the housing grant. You all probably remember that needed to wrap up. Well, I can say Noah did a great job. He got the state what they needed, and that's closed out. So we've bought a tremendous amount of goodwill by showing that we were able to wrap up that existing grant. And that's kind of how it goes. So,
do we have any risk if the state doesn't approve the extension?
I mean, there's always risk, I suppose, because you have to have the grant open to order to get the, the payments, right? So I've run that before where, we had a contract dispute once with a contractor that didn't do what they were supposed to. It dragged out. The state misunderstood, closed the grant. We went back, explained the situation. They opened it again. It's a bureaucratic step. The funds are secure. Again, there are ways to negotiate that. Sometimes you burn one source of money first, and then you don't have to worry. So, you can definitely mitigate, but there's really no indication that it would be any good to the state or us to not, follow this through.
Okay, but just because you're going to learn I'm very slow at this kind of stuff.
Okay.
So we're going to buy all the materials. They'll be here within the next 4 weeks, and we get the grant open when?
Well, here's the thing. So the grant's already open. We're good. I don't know if the state has finally done that 9/30 extension, but again, once that's secure, we can go right almost into the next extension request. But as far as the materials, all the procurement was originally on the contractor. But because, and again, I'm only 2 months in with the city, so I've gotten some of the history. But because of the delay and waiting for the state for the funding and the historical review, the environmental assessment, which is not typically conducted on an urbanized environment, but in this case, a consultant was hired. Maybe the state said, hey, you guys need to do this, but these things all add time. And so what happened was, the contractor was ready to go. They bought materials, which is the stormwater structures. Well, TJ, who managed this grant before I took over the project, they had a heart-to-heart with a contractor, and the contractor said, we need a good faith showing that, the city is going to come through on this. And one of the good faith things that was offered was buying the brick. So part of this amendment that will be taken to you all is going to carve that brick money out of that guaranteed maximum price, because again, the procurement is generally the contractor's responsibility. But because of the delay, the city agreed to buy the brick and order that brick, get it on a quick timeline, delivered to the site. And so that'll be carved out of that guaranteed maximum price. It's unusual, I'm going to tell you that, but it isn't unheard of. Let me just say that.
Okay, I know you're new, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you could just drop, and maybe the council or the C.R.A., a little note on what our risks are, you
Yep.
know, what the upside and downside are. I'm thinking, and believe me, my mind doesn't work 100% all the time, but
Okay.
I'm thinking that we were told that we were going to use the brick that we uncovered out there. We weren't buying new brick, and they were going to use that. I don't want to get into a big debate on that. Just give me a yes or no if we're buying or using the other brick, because I think I'm on a different wavelength with that. And then when we put these, what do you call them, tanks? What do you call these stormwater, where the
Catch basins.
catch basins in?
Yeah.
Is that a temporary or a permanent thing? Because we'll be running stormwater drains down to our two ponds on each end in the next 3 years. And I know these just like are tiered, right? That like, and then they run right into Lake David. They're not a purification kind of thing.
Well, they are, well, I can answer two things. So the stormwater structures, generally the idea is to hold, attenuate, let them sit there and let everything settle out. And then what gets into the lake eventually should be just water and not sediments and things like that. So I can kind of answer that big picture thing. Because this project was designed by the same engineering firm that is doing our stormwater master plan, that really helps because then you've got that continuity. So I think that addresses that. And then the answer with the brick is no. We are buying new brick that looks like old brick, but that is rated for 10,000 pounds of truck traffic, because you've got to get this right. You either spend money, so basically,
That's fine.
we're
I
using
think
a
we
good
just need to
brick.
get all that new stuff, because I still have the old from the last time this was presented, and I know that conversation. So all those changes, if you can get them to us, I'd really appreciate taking
Okay.
a look at it. And
Sure.
And I'm familiar with the tiered thing, and it doesn't take the oil, right? I mean, everything runs on top to the other.
That's fair.
So that's why I'm asking, is this going to ever be hooked up to keep that out of Lake David? Since we're putting this whole storm drain in, are we hooking into the other storm drains to take it down to the catch ponds rather than in Lake David?
When I get Mr. Jaycox's information, I'll try to get you that information as well. But I would say that, again, any type of discharge like that would be in the state of Florida an illicit discharge. So by the nature of a stormwater system, you cannot allow that to happen. So again, unless we had a renegade engineer and everybody missed it, that would be considered an illicit discharge, and it wouldn't be allowable in the state of Florida.
Okay. Steve?
So would this, and I know it's not on here, but would this disturb the current brick that was newly put in? That's the initial phase?
To my understanding, no. It'll match up with that and extend
It'll kind of
it.
meet and then extend?
Yeah.
You guys don't have to rip up a piece or
No,
anything?
no.
Okay.
It's just going to be that same look of, that
drain in?
antique look.
Not to put the drain under? You're not going to have to take any of that up?
I'm not really, honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know the stormwater side of this as well, so I'll have to probably answer that later when I get Mr. Jacobs.
That would be good to know, because that was money that was spent to hopefully not have to re-rip up.
We'll put it in the documents.
And then,
Well, one thing I will say is I believe they're using a pervious concrete for the sidewalk, so that avoids having to do stormwater offsets.
and then you had mentioned TJ, and then so are you now managing this project fully?
Yes.
Okay, and that was a change from before?
Yes.
It was TJ.
Well, yeah, TJ was sort of the primary, but also there were a bunch of hands in it because it was the C.R.A. and then Mike in Parks. We've got some event electrical going into this project, so it was sort of, many hands, but part of the focus now is, I'm an experienced project manager. I've done this a lot, so I grabbed this thing 2 weeks ago, and we're gonna get this sucker done. So yeah.
And then that's the same answer for the stormwater master plan and all. Are those things under you, or
No.
they're still under TJ, even though they're in the C.R.A.?
Yes. At this point, the idea is to just take the C.R.A.-focused projects, especially this project and some of the things we'll talk about in a little bit, and really manage them closely in the C.R.A. Public Works will continue to work that stormwater master plan, the utilities master plan. That will still remain a function of Public Works. The Parks master plan will be, we're getting a more departmentalized, which is, good. That's the right way to do it, honestly. Less hands in the pie, so to speak.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
Right.
The city, let's say, the city meets all of its obligations, gets the materials, and et cetera. Final delivery date is expected 12/31, no later than 12/31/26. Am I right so far?
12/3 is the final, yeah.
okay.
So, and that really is 150 days. This project could wrap up in 90 days, but the grant, we expect to be closed out by the 31st, but the December 3rd will be final completion date. If the contractor doesn't complete, they stand to have liquidated damages each day until then.
That's where I was headed. I wanted to know
Yep.
if there was a liquidated damages clause in here.
Absolutely.
That's where I
You
was
shouldn't do a
headed.
contract without it, so you're right on. Yep,
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Okay, any further questions? Any questions from
Yeah,
the?
yeah, I got it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan.
No, so the extension for September, that was, you said it's still pending. Was that like, we actually filed for the extension?
Yeah, we're all
That's already,
done.
that's on someone's,
These bureaucracies at the state level, you get it through legal, and then you wait for like the assistant secretary to sign it or something. So it's past every hurdle, everything. We're just waiting for that final, sign off. So there's
Okay.
no reason to worry about that.
so for, obviously, a timeline that's kind of sensitive as this one, for the reply on the extension for September, and then the additional extension for 12/3, or 12/31, you said is what you're requesting.
Right.
But the idea is that that's done by the first week of December. Can you email us when each of those steps, just so, because I'm not sure when our next meeting is, but, I think it'd be helpful for all of us to know those updates. And then, I think Jay Cox already said about some of the risks, foreseeable risks with the schedule. Mm-hmm. And do you have access to the full schedule from the contractor? Is that something that would be easy for you to get, once a month up until the completion of the project?
What we will do is we'll have weekly progress reports. So again, this will be professionally managed from here on. And the way we'll do that is we'll have a pre-construction meeting, and then we'll have 2-week outlooks at every progress meeting. So we'll start weekly progress meetings in the beginning. As the thing gets kicked off, we'll probably go to a 2-week schedule. And every time we have a progress meeting, they will give us a 2-week outlook. They'll be like, okay, we're going to bring in the sub-base. We're going to bring in this. We're going to be doing brickwork. We're going to be doing stormwater. So again, we will contract. We also have in this contract administration through the design firm, half that engineered the plans. So they'll also, not only will, myself and our staff be keeping an eye on the project, we'll also have the contract administration that's covered in the agreement. So it'll be professionally managed.
Okay.
But the way these work really, other than the progress meetings, is generally you give 90 days to substantial completion, another 30 days to final completion. In this case, we're looking at 150 to final, just because, we've given them a little bit extra, 120 for the substantial completion. But again, I believe that's reasonable in this time of the year with the rains. And, we get a hurricane. Again, there's force majeure and there's these things, but in some ways you got to understand this contractor's been on hold for months,
Sure.
So I'm taking over the project. I want to start off in good faith and meet them in the middle. And I feel like we've been able to restart this project. And again, everybody's had the best intentions on this thing, but sometimes best intentions don't get you a start date when you're
Sure.
waiting on a bureaucracy and environmental reviews and historical reviews and these kind of things. So they are committed to finishing this. Time is money in the contracting world. So, I have no indication why they would want to sit on it. If anything, right now, they're sort of waiting on us because of the brick, but everything is lining up. Again, there's no reason this couldn't be done in 90 days, but these projects sometimes take time, so it's better to give ourselves that breathing room and get it done right,
Okay. And then for the bricks, just to kind of satisfy my curiosity, what was the price that we're on hook for to go ahead and just purchase those bricks outright?
So the whole brick order
Yeah.
came out to about $140,000,
Okay.
yeah.
And that's, so all the brick from Cherry all the way down to Poplar, that's all brand new brick, or new brick?
Entire project is new brick rated at 10,000 pounds, which for vehicle traffic, which will handle the truck if, we have trucks and things coming in. So it's a little bit thicker than was originally spec'd.
Yeah.
We had a kind of, again, I've been through these projects a lot. Like, I even had the engineers spec the type of sand they're going to put between there because, you've got to get into the details. And sometimes, again, it seems like a small thing, but it isn't. So again, we went a little bit of a refresh on the plans, and we're feeling really secure about that right now. The brick is tumbled. They either call it rumbled or tumbled, but it's going to look like old brick, but it's new brick.
Okay.
But it's
And-
going to look very consistent with a historic downtown.
Now there's brick underneath the concrete right now, right, underneath the asphalt. And I know that was originally the conversation, is saving that for the build-out of the new road. Now, obviously, it makes sense to have stuff that's a little bit more durable. What are we doing with that brick? Is that just going in the trash, or are we going to try to recover that for future aesthetic purposes?
Yeah, I don't
At Train
honestly-
Depot, let's just say.
Yeah, honestly, I'd have to look at the plan. And again,
Yeah.
probably TJ would have been better to answer
Okay.
these because he's been more experienced with the plans themselves. I haven't looked at that level of detail, whether that's all going to get excavated or if they're going to just, take up the asphalt. I really don't know what that's.
And I understand there's probably quite a bit more work trying to separate that from the asphalt, but
Yeah.
I know we gave away quite a bit of our brick in the past. I think it'd be great to save it, especially for more aesthetic purposes than something that has to be load-bearing, so.
Let me take a look at that in the contract. We'll see if there's any specifications that I can probably get you a follow-up answer on that.
And then just one last question for the payment schedule, and I'm sure this came out at some point, so you'll have to refresh my memory, but was this a lump sum payment to the contractor, or are you managing checkpoints
Yeah.
for payment?
This will happen in pay apps and submittals. So just like any standard project, if they want to change something they're using, they're going to have to submit. Like if they want to change a fitting or something, they're going to submit it. We'll have the engineer review it. The pay applications will come in as the project progresses. They'll get paid when they complete the project, and then that benchmark. Basically, they say, we've done this, we verify they've done this, and we'll pay them in steps, and then we can go seek that reimbursement from the state and get it back into the city's funds.
And since you're the project manager, correct?
Yes.
Are you essentially signing off on that next step?
Yes. I will be looking at every pay app and submittal. I just don't have the engineering degree to sign off on the submittals, but I will review everything. Again, one point of contact, one point of control, and nothing will get to finance without going through me, and also the engineering firms, that take a look at these things.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that, and you weren't here, but I'm sure you've heard, like when we did the beautification project on Broad Street, like there was some things that were signed off on, and then we realized there was a lot of things that were not done correctly. So that's why I asked that question, but that's it.
No, absolutely. Again, it's nice when things go smoothly, but sometimes they don't. And, when they don't, you got to hold the contractors to task. I mean, we've been down the road of litigation before in other governments I've worked with. Again, I mentioned the sand, the paving company used the wrong sand. We got a rain like we had over the weekend here, and the stuff washed out, and we ended up in litigation. And luckily, our landscape architect had spec'd exactly what sand was supposed to be used for that paver job, and they didn't use it. We had a lab and said, nope, they didn't use it, and so we had a bulletproof, case.
Cool.
So anyway, it'll be in good hands.
No, I'm sure it will be.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. That's all I had.
Okay, fair enough.
Frank, one more thing. This is a design build, right?
It is a design build, yes.
So I just want to educate everybody on the board. We have to be very careful about what we say and what we do, because they designed it and they're building it and they're going to hand it to us. Now, in the contract, there were time limits and things like that, and when payments are due and they're due to construction. But if we get into the minutia of saving bricks or something like that, we could cause ourselves this big change order. And design builds love change orders.
I think the new brick was the change order. The old brick was supposed to be used, and the old brick was more expensive to do the old brick than the new brick, so that's a found dollars. But according to, am I right? I mean, that's what I was told, that to clean the old brick and everything was going to cost significantly more than the new. But I hope that you put it in your notebook that some of that old brick might need to be used for the train station depot, since it's from the original thing, it might add a little bit of more character over there to be able to say that was where that came from. And can we make sure, Frank, that we put in the budget for next year the upkeep of this?
Right.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
we have other areas around town that we've gone in with great expectations, but we didn't put the upkeep in, and we've kind of fallen down a little bit there.
Yes, we are working on landscaping agreements and things like that to make sure that whatever goes in gets maintained. So it's on our radar, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep,
Thank you.
all right.
Okay, well, that was very nicely done. I appreciate your patience with us, and the next presentation is right back to you, Frank, I
Yep.
think.
It's
It's
my-
Train Depot Draft Business Plan.
Well, no, we're actually,
Downtown
we have just
infrastructure.
quickly, the downtown infrastructure
must have
public
had 2 pages.
realm. So just wanted to give you all just a quick update, on where we are. We're having weekly meetings with, the other arm of GAI. So Laura here tonight is from GAI, but we're working with their landscape architecture, engineering, planning folks on this downtown infrastructure public realm master plan. Coming to you soon will be a discussion of what we really want to call this, and we'll have that discussion at some point. Right now, we're just with this placeholder, but we'll have GAI here, and they'll talk with y'all, because we do want to get the public excited about it. Right now, there's more behind the scenes happening. Again, weekly meetings for coordination of stormwater, transportation, parking, and other components of what this downtown master plan will look like. So this is just a timeline we wanted to share with y'all. There are a number of steps where we'll have workshops with the C.R.A. board. We'll have some community meetings coming up. We'll have some studies going on in the background, and we'll talk a little bit more of that as we get together. It has come to our attention, and at the recommendation that we do a traffic study. We will bring more information on that to you all, but part of the problem is DOT had very outdated information that didn't address necessarily what the traffic patterns will be after the realignment, because we know that probably people are going to still want to come through downtown rather maybe than jump on the new alignment. So we really want to get that data so that we can use informed data for the consultant to recommend two-way streets versus one-way streets, what kind of traffic flow, this kind of thing. So we're going to be bringing that to you a little bit later. Part of that issue also is we need to understand what it looks like when school is in session, because it's vastly different, right? So we're going to be looking at that, and it's going to be a component of this. But for right now, we're sort of getting out the strategy. What do we want it to encompass? We're working on a stormwater master plan. We really need to understand what the downtown realm is going to be with a stormwater plan, right? Because if we're going to infill and turn some of these empty lots into new commercial that's going to add tax value, you really can't do that unless you have some kind of regional stormwater, right? So we have an opportunity now to really do this right. Look at traffic, look at parking, look at stormwater. And does it take more time? Yes. But in the end, this is the chance to get the downtown what the community wants out of it, to allow it to develop into a fantastic civic center, business center, that kind of thing. But again, there are realities, and you all have touched on it with the stormwater, with the parking. What are we going to do about, potentially garbage pickup and shared compactor space? These are all, well, the mayor understands, when you have a restaurant, you want a sidewalk cafe or an outdoor patio. You don't want a dumpster. So, I feel we have an obligation to work with, the downtown businesses to try to make it easier for them to develop. I mean, that is the intent of a C.R.A., is to get private investment and redevelop. So these are big things, and some of it is going to be adding a little bit to this scope, but we also, again, and I'm just sort of speaking from my standpoint, but, Andrew's on board and, Tim's on board as well. we have to address the big picture things like stormwater. If we're looking to say, what is this downtown going to look like in the next 20 years, you can't ignore something as important as stormwater or parking or, master plan and utilities. So we've got to make sure that the stormwater master plan, the utilities master plan, where we're going to put City Hall, all these things are part of that conversation, at least that they get some consideration as we try to come out with this downtown master plan. So, again, tried to stay 50,000 feet, but you have to get into the weeds a little bit when you do this. So I'm happy to answer any questions about what's coming up with that, but I just wanted to touch base with y'all, at least to say that, yes, for weeks now, we've been working on this and really trying to refine, really aiming that, that rifle sort of right down the middle of the target, hopefully. So anyway, available for questions if y'all have any.
I'm confused. So this is, I know we talked about this previously. We haven't started any of this, correct?
All behind the scenes. So it is started, and we've got a contract for this, and we're working with the consultants. But what we're doing really is trying to, finalize what all we want included in this public realm. There's a lot included already, but we may need to add some things. And part of that is a regional stormwater plan, for example, because they can give us all kinds of concepts and recommendations, but if you don't have your stormwater master plan considered in it, then it may be completely irrelevant, because we've got a very complicated stormwater situation down here, which I've not seen before, but like our water has to run in 4 different directions, which is kind of kooky, but, because usually you could just put it wherever you want it, but when you've got a complicated system of geography and topography, these are complicated things. So we do need to have that stormwater discussion in here. Again, the project is moving along. They've already been in the community. They've done drone footage. There's a lot.
What item are we on currently?
Like in this process right now?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good question, honestly. We've had a number of progress meetings to try to narrow down. They've done the area visit and assessment, which you see on there as well. And so our next step is going to be the C.R.A. staff and workshop. That'll be coming to you, later this year.
Yes, sir. Mike Jaycox.
So we're behind right now based on the schedule you're showing?
We are a little behind, that is correct.
A little behind.
And honestly, the traffic study is going to delay a little bit too if we do include it. If we don't include it, we run the risk of maybe not having good data in the mix. And, it's garbage in, garbage out, so there is a risk. But can we avoid it? I don't think it's the right move, but could we? Yes. But again, we're trying to figure out the next 20 years of development in the downtown. So my opinion would be, let's include everything, that we can to get this right, We're probably only going to have one chance at it,
Speaking of including all the data, have we put a survey out to the public?
There is going to be some public opportunities. There's going to be some walking meetings and things like that. I'm not sure what kind of a survey if they've got it in mind. We'll have them present. I think they're lined up for maybe the August meeting of the C.R.A. Or if not, they'll be at the workshop. But again, GAI is handling that. The folks that are on this. And I'm still getting up to speed on some of this, but they'll present more to you all when they do the workshop for the naming of this project. Again, I just wanted you all to know that things are happening. It's just more of the planning on the background.
The last question I have right now is, considering that we're behind in this, their contract is not going to run out before we finish the study, correct?
No, it was set to go until next year anyway, so we're okay on that. Again, obviously, we want to have a product to y'all with this study as quickly as we can, but we also want to make sure we get it right. And again, some of that was us sitting down and saying, well, where does regional stormwater fit in this? Where does parking fit in this? Where are efficiencies between utilities and some of the projects that are planned and this kind of thing?
Okay, thank you, Frank.
Okay.
Dan?
Dan?
So for the traffic data, does that have to go in line with this timeline, or can it run like concurrently with it? Like,
It will run concurrently, but the thing is, you then have to process that data. It takes a couple months to get that data together, and then it has to be put into the overall recommendations, because if not, they would look at outside factors. There are some established cases where you could look at two-way traffic versus one-way traffic when you're redesigning a downtown. So it's not that you couldn't accomplish it, but what we really want to understand is, what does our town look like, during school session, and what is going to be the best fit, for our traffic patterns based on what they observe, what they project, and then with the new realignment. So again, the best way to do that is with data that they've collected themselves. A lot of times, we touched on this earlier, an engineering firm tries to use FDOT data, but they don't mesh necessarily, and then you can have, I've seen it with, one company does the surveying, and then another company's designing, and you think, hey, this is math. This should be easy, but, you just get, oh, well, those files and this file, and then, so it's a lot cleaner when you use the same firm to do the study and then roll it into their data. Rather than trying to take this old FDOT data and throw it in there. But again, that is something that will take a little bit more time, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to hold everything up. We're still moving along. It's just the idea is, when you finally get that data into the finished product, it is going to delay it by a little bit just because we have to process it.
So what do you foresee, like, the first workshop, this one that was technically slated for April, our first workshop on this master plan, when would that be?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be June, at that June C.R.A. workshop, which is actually next month. So yeah, probably is when we're going to have them work on that naming project and sort of start your involvement with that project. Again, right now, it's been a lot of behind-the-scenes planning between all the different departments, and really just everybody bringing ideas to the table about how to really get this right,
So when we originally spoke to them, and they presented on this whole thing, they kind of, I think I asked the question, and they were pretty honest about it being somewhat boilerplate, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously, like, we have unique needs, so it's good that we're looking at the details. Yeah. So as far as the community meetings, can we front load some of those, get some of the feedback while they're working on more of the minute details that, quite honestly, I'm not sure the community would be super engaged in when it comes to the stormwater, the granular details.
Right.
So we can get that feedback sooner than later. So if there's certain things in here that we're going to be late on, is there anything that we can front load and start to get that feedback, like you're talking, like a survey, the workshops, all that kind of stuff? Because I kind of feel like they already have that structure built in. That's how they explained it to us.
Yep.
So can they go ahead and execute on that instead of waiting on that? So the stuff that we have to wait, all this data, there's already things in play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think we should definitely have a survey. I think that's always important when you're doing these kind of things. I guess the question is, if we're trying to reach the business owners as well, then we're going to want to have, questions in there, for example, about stormwater, parking, garbage, these type of questions. So it may be good to have, some questions in there that will give us some good anecdotal data about those things as well. But I definitely take notes, and I think, yes, we can make sure that that's happening as these other things are happening.
Okay, and then I have just two more questions. Mm-hmm. For the stormwater, so we had a stormwater master plan put together by Woodard and Kern.
Okay.
Right, so when it comes to specifically for downtown, what are we missing? Like, what, and what does that scope, does that increase the scope on Woodard and Kern, what we have to pay for? Is that an additional on top of that, or is this something more high level that is going to be GAI?
It's a good question, and to be fair, generally, when you do a stormwater master plan as a city, you're only concerned with your streets, your sidewalks, and your stuff, right? So when you start, and that's where we're going in a direction of, how do we help private sector develop their land? And that's when you get into regional stormwater, which includes different stakeholders. So I'll be honest with you, I've been through 2 or 3 stormwater master plans. They're pretty easy because you know what the city has, you know what the city is planning to do. Oh, you're going to pave that road, you need stormwater. It's pretty straightforward. Regional stormwater, when you're starting to incorporate private businesses to allow them to develop, now you're getting into very smart planning, but more complicated, right? Because now you're looking at potentially who pays for it, right? Is there going to be a stormwater assessment? But, I mean, stormwater is something that we have to deal with. And if we want our landowners to have anything but surface parking, we're going to have stormwater in consideration. So, again, these are big questions, and it's harder, but it is also important, as you obviously understand as a business owner, what happens in those parking areas, what allows a building to redevelop with today's standards is often regional or shared stormwater that now allows that restaurant to expand or allows a building to dedicate a parking area perhaps into some kind of a sidewalk cafe or an empty lot that might lose 20% of their lot, right? Because we have a lot of infill to do here. You don't want to let those folks lose 20% of their land to stormwater, where you might be able to work out a situation where you can have a stormwater assessment and now they can utilize that property, gives us tax value, and we stick the stormwater somewhere where it's not going to take, prime land, right? So,
Sure.
Again, it's more complicated. Stormwater master plan, again, everybody's got to have it, but we're trying to, we're thinking at this point of, do we go beyond streets and sidewalks and we start saying, hey, how do we get maximum tax values out of the available land in this downtown core? I mean,
Okay.
Dan,
just-
maybe just before you move on.
Yeah.
The Woodard and Curran, from my understanding from just several weeks ago, was here to map. They didn't do the master plan yet. They were mapping out what we have, not only down here, but around
Yeah, all our assets.
the other neighborhoods. So I don't know that they, at least as of recently, they didn't have a master plan yet for downtown.
Okay. And then, is it realistic that by the next meeting, next month, could we have some details as far as what the additional scope is financially for adding all these things to the original 250 that we approved?
absolutely. I mean, sorry. The water went down. Mainly, we're waiting on the traffic study. That's really the only thing that's going to expand at this point that is sort of critically time sensitive, yeah.
So even with like adding on some additional stuff with the streets, and you're talking about the infill sites and how we can utilize those, like that, to me, that sounds really specific, which I agree it should be. But based on what we were told originally, a lot of their stuff was a little bit more boilerplate and not super custom to our exact downtown layout. So I kind of feel like if I was the contractor, I would think there'd be some scope creep there.
Well, I mean, 2 things. So we can keep it exactly what the scope we approved, and we can go forward that. I guess the question is whether we want to try to make this more comprehensive and more, I guess, predictive of what we want it to look like. But there is no reason we can't stick to the original scope. The traffic study is definitely something that I wouldn't recommend not doing. If we don't want to look at regional stormwater as part of this, then we stick to the existing scope. It's not that we can't. So again, it's really a question of, do we want to go with more of a boilerplate, concept recommendations, or do we want to get a little bit further into the weeds and get some ideas that say, hey, you've got, 4 different basically stormwater areas here and diversions. Here would be a good target for this. This would be a good target for that. Here's, again, they're not going to do a stormwater master plan, but we would want recommendations on regional stormwater locations potentially and that kind of thing. Again, what we're trying to do is do this holistically. I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but again, you don't want necessarily a stormwater master plan being developed, that doesn't even take into account, well, there's all these properties here that don't have enough land for stormwater if they want to build a structure on it, So, again, it's hard, but you also want to at least have that conversation and say, okay, city, maybe you dedicate, don't that piece of city property, don't sell that off, keep that, because that'd be a perfect spot for that regional stormwater. And then you put an assessment on those businesses. They're happy, you're happy, their land's valuable. So, again, this is sort of a meeting of the minds, because we've gotten together on this and said, like, okay, this project is kicking off. What do we absolutely want to include in this? And again, it's a question, and you all ultimately answer that when we bring things to you. But I want you to know what we've been having conversations on, because a lot of it is this, initial ramp up to really make sure that you're laying out the right, objectives, I guess, so that the outcome follows what you're trying to get to.
And I definitely, I think it should be, one of our values is intentionality, and that's something that is important. I think we should be super intentional. So I'm not saying it should be boilerplate.
Right.
I just think that we need as much transparency as possible on the cost. And not just for this project, but going forward, if we have another master plan that we're putting together, that when something's put forward in front of us, you say, okay, well, the last one was this. Maybe we look at approving something more and making sure that we're not going beyond that scope. And we just, going forward, have a little bit better idea on cost, true cost, what that's going to be. So
Totally
that's it.
agree. And again, when we come with the traffic study, we'll give you the original study cost, and then, there'll be a separate task order for that. And really, it'll be the board's will, whether y'all want to include it or not. And I'm sure, Andrew or Tim may want to, speak to those points as well, since they've had the experience. But absolutely, this is going to be sort of like an a la carte add-on. It's not going to be just, another, complete scope.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And thank you for the explanations. That's
Yep,
super
no, I'm just happy to, answer a few questions, because
Yeah.
I was so new at that first meeting, I couldn't answer anything.
Yep.
Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Is it safe to assume that the stakeholders in this plan are the residents, businesses, nonprofits, and government agencies? Are there any more stakeholders?
We want to hear from, all the residents about what they want to see in their downtown, but you covered pretty much, yes, the main stakeholders, but we do want to hear from the community about, the history of the downtown and these kind of things. We want to hear from them, and this is the perfect use of that survey. What kind of things do they come to the downtown for? What kind of things do they want to come to the downtown for in the future? And that'll help, make decisions about some of the choices we'll have to make as we look at city properties and those kind of things.
So when they give this information, and you've done all the information gathering, how will their thoughts be incorporated into the final plan?
That's a good question. Probably it's better for the consultant to answer that, but generally, they'll look at these, concepts, and they'll present them to you all probably as well in like a word map or something like that, where people say, I want restaurants, or I want these kind of things. And again, that part of the consultant's job is to boil that down into a report that y'all can digest easily. But I don't have the methodology of how they're going to do that, honestly.
Will we be meeting with the consultant?
Yes, they will have meetings with you all. There's a couple of them there, those workshops. I think there's 3 on the board. So yes, you'll get to know them. They'll hear your feedback, and they're going to hear your ideas, your constituents' ideas, yes.
Do you know how the consultant, who is the consultant?
It's GAI, but it's a different group from the GAI that helps assist with the administration of this. This is a planning group that have done these projects in many cities all over the country, actually. So we've got a really crack team. They're great.
And this plan, once it's done, how will it adapt to future growth, which, Groveland is expected to grow, and climate changes, or the needs of the community change? How will this plan address that?
Well, that is the question, I guess, because when we look at this thing, again, the regional stormwater, the parking, what we want the community to be, as was mentioned, the intentionality, the walkability, these kind of things, all that will be incorporated into these recommendations. So Again, essentially, this is taking the redesigned roadways and basically everything in between those redesigned roadways and the realignment, and making recommendations and showing concepts of what it could be. And then it's really going to be up to you all to choose one of those paths or a combination of those paths. And then the next step will be to actually implement the infrastructure, the buildings, if necessary, for example, a city hall, if located downtown, parks updates and that. So this is really the blueprint for that next 20 years of growth that we're looking at.
So it can be anticipated that the plan will cover future growth and climate changes and all of those things, that the consultant will include that into the plan.
Right. Looking at things like stormwater, infrastructure needs, will address those concerns. That's going to be a key part of this because, again, any type of development needs those offsets. So stormwater ponds, the city's going to have needs with that too. And we're going to have to identify sites for those ponds and things like that. And also, again, if we decide to put City Hall in the downtown area, then it's going to need stormwater offsets, parking, infrastructure, utilities, which is kind of beneficial because that stuff's, largely already here, the utilities and things like that. But again, it will be all laid out in these conceptuals of what it could look like.
I get it about the stormwater and et cetera, but I guess my main emphasis is focused on the community. We have to have the stormwater. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned about the community, though. It grows, okay, or something changes. I want to know how that's going to be incorporated into the plan.
If something changes in terms of like community housing or like residents, existing homes, how they'll be affected by this, is that where you're concerned?
Growth, development, and those types of things.
Yeah, I mean, one of the discussions we're having is right now we're in a downtown core is essentially the type of zoning that we have. So one of the discussions is, do we roll out a historic district? Do we roll out a historic business district as a zoning overlay? Those are things that can protect existing homes. It can define what we want the downtown to look like. A downtown business district or a historic district usually has an architectural and aesthetic review committee. Where I just came from, we had that to protect the look of the downtown. So you have an amazing amount of tools, and they may be recommended through this study. And then you're talking about the type of awning a person puts out on their building, the type of facade. I mean, you can get as detailed as you want in that control. It's a question of how deep do you want to get into that. But with an architectural and aesthetic review committee, you can have this place looking like pretty much whatever you want. It's really a question of how many tools do you want to employ, and what are you trying to solve for. So whether it's historic preservation, historic homes, business district, those kind of things. So the answer, I think, is that yes, it could be incorporated, but through the meetings, we'll have to guide the consultant on what exactly we're trying to solve for in preservation or, climate mitigation.
I really don't like the answer, but rather than hold some things up now, I'll just let it go for now.
Okay.
Okay, I just got a few things. First, I want to go on record because I've had this conversation on Thursdays, but I want you to please consider a different path on this. It's just my opinion, it should start with ideation, and it should be ideation with the public. On do they want restaurants, what do they want? You start with the public. I think the public is getting worn out on us bringing consultant stuff to them and asking them if they like it or not, rather than asking them what they want to begin with. And some of the best areas that have been developed around this area started out with public ideation, and then it's like funnel, and then you take it down and
Yep.
get it to a point. So I'd even like to see that before the workshop, so that we could see what the public really is looking for. Then I have, just to add to your quiver there, the reason that we've been talking so much about storm water is because we want one dig. And we need to know what's going in. If there are restaurants, that's a different kind of sewer issue with grease traps and all that. So knowing what that's going to be is important not only for storm water, but for everything else. So we only dig once for power, for all this. And so I would add that to your quiver there. And Festival Park is a major, major part of this. I've had the opportunity, back when we had a former development person, to walk with some people that understand restaurants and stuff, and they're very attracted to keeping Festival Park and having views out on that side, and having parking in down Main Street. So I would say, if you're putting this in, we need to understand what Festival Park is going to be. Is it going to be an elementary school, or is it going to be a park? You know, because there's a lot of different stories going around about what it should be and what it shouldn't be. So before we can determine, I think, downtown. Then last, I would, well, not last, but next I would say consultants are great. You know, but some of the best work that we've had done has been done by our people. And I'll
Fair.
take the strategic plan group, who was hand-selected because they were experts in different areas. But it's great to, somebody will say, we want an entertainment district, you know, and we want to close it off like the French Quarter after 6 o'clock and have it all going. Well, then you're going to have to say, well, what's in between the restaurants, and that's parking also, and what's going on in day parts and all that kind of stuff. So I would really tack on to some experts in the community in those areas, and we have some pretty good ones. Critical mass. I just went through had a long talk about the Parks Master Plan, because fifth on the Parks Master Plan is skate park. Have you seen that?
No.
The skate park. And that came out of a group discussion where there was a community meeting with 20 people, and 5 of them were the kids that were down here. And they put the skate park in, and so
Right.
it's fifth on the list, and, you know,
Yep.
everything else is down. So, I mean, we really have to have a goal. What is the critical mass that's going to be critical to us to say that's really a good sample of
Agreed.
of what's going on with the community? And yeah, I just wish we could turn this around a little bit to get through a lot of stuff before we get a consultant, before we get a contractor, before we get everything. It's much cheaper to tell the contractor what we want than tell them this is what we're thinking about, and it just, you know that from all your years.
Yep.
That we need to just get this whole ideation all the way through your whole chart, your management chart, to start out and bring those guys in after we really understand what it's going to be, rather than prior, because we burn up a lot of time for consultants, you know, that maybe we should think about the process just a little bit different. But the one dig,
Yeah.
big on my list.
Yep.
The second big thing on the list is Festival Park.
Yep.
The third is traffic.
Yep.
I don't know why we're doing a traffic study for downtown. I really don't, because you got 4 lanes coming in, you got 4 lanes going out, you got 4 lanes going around, you got 2 lanes going down. Last thing you want is a traffic jam through here in the morning, because they're still going to have to wait at the light for the same amount of people to get
Right.
on, because this isn't a bypass, isn't a traffic, it's just a truck alleviation, you know, and so we know how many cars are coming, you know, but I think really we need to look at parking. For every 10 tables, you need 6 parking spaces in a restaurant.
fair,
So,
yeah.
I mean, if we're going to have restaurants, we got to figure out how to do it. The last
right.
chef I had down here wanted the building over here. What's the building? Looks like a Western building, huh? Yeah,
Edge
Edge
Building.
Building. And we walked through, and he said, I want it. It was a pretty good chef, too, and we said, how many parking spaces? And it was 6.
Yep. And
And
that's.
he
yeah.
never talked to me again, because I brought him down here for 6 parking spaces, so we
That's
need
right.
to figure it out.
Agree. Yep. Totally agree.
Any other round? Any public?
No.
Name
Bob
and
Proper.
address, please. Yeah,
Bob Proper, 395 Catherine Lane.
you're out of order.
Out of time.
I'm really glad to hear we've got someone with project management skills. I'll come meet with you. I'm scratching my head. I'm a little confused. We just talked about this reworking of the Cherry, or the Lake Avenue. We've got storm structures that are going in, but we don't have a storm structure design. I mean, I know we have a storm structure design, but that little piece of it, we don't even understand how does that fit in to the broader picture of everything. Maybe I'm missing something. Where is the water, I'm sorry, direct questions here. Where is our stormwater map? I heard half, I believe, is doing this. Where is it? When did it start? What is this? Where are we at in that process? That's kind of a major thing, especially if we're now talking about coming and starting, and again, sorry, but I like looking at people when I talk. I use my hands sometimes too, but I'm not Italian. But anyway, so just basic questions. We're going to start digging, one dig, hopefully, but we're using structures. I'm assuming that's what's over here in the old hotel parking lot here, but how do we know that that's what we need? Because we don't have a stormwater plan. You know, and as far as, you know, some of the other things mentioned, and again, I really do, I'll give you my card afterwards. I do want to meet with you. But I don't understand, and maybe I'm just too simple and missed it. You know, I can't say I'm just a chef, but I'm just a broker. You know, what do I know? So do we have those answers as far as like where is the stormwater plan for today, whatever it looks like today, and what does that look like? And absolutely should be looking at regional stormwater, right? I mean, have to do that because we don't have that big of an area and we're surrounded by water. So we're gonna have to definitely figure that out. So that's my question. Where is that and how does that actually fit into what we think we just approved?
I think you should have a meeting with Frank. I think Frank's going to tell you this is an independent thing that's all in its own with a catch basin and all that, because right now it's not planned to go into the other area. That's the way it's planned now. So this is a separate entity that we got a grant for. In my opinion and what I've been told is we don't have the master stormwater plan yet. They've just been mapping, not only downtown, but throughout the whole city. We have areas that need stormwater attention, not so much the new developments, because they were required to put them in,
Right.
but the old part of the city and some of the not so old part of the city that didn't put them in because it wasn't required needs help. So we're putting that map together. From that map will come a master plan.
Okay, so we don't have a plan.
No.
But we're having a plan because we're going to put structures in the ground and put nice, pretty pavers over them, but we don't know does that really work. A
Well,
little
that
confused.
works. That works. It goes into I got an engineer here that could explain it better than me, but it goes into catch basins.
Familiar with how it works.
Yeah, so-
That's not the question. The question is, what's feeding that? You know, I remember a certain 4th of July, a couple of years ago, there was 8 inches of water right here at the end of this road. We were standing in it, right? So it all generates from other locations, so you can't look at stormwater in isolated little pockets because it gets fed from other locations. So I don't know. Again, I just helping understanding where's our water plan.
Well, I'm going to have Noah give you my card, and we'll get together later.
Yep, we'll trade
But, so, you know, we've got the project going, and there's stormwater that's going to address that project, and then the stormwater master plan is underway, and that's what's being planned. Most cities like to have a stormwater and utility master plan. We're starting that process.
I'm glad
And-
we're thinking about it, but
Yeah.
I just question, I guess we now consider that That's just that. And then
Project.
we have to figure
That's
out
right.
how to work around it,
That's right.
And did you,
And
and then dig it up if it doesn't work. But
No, I don't think we have to, but no, we'll give you.
if I could add
Get together.
oh,
and
go
did-
ahead, Stephen.
Did you say that it's the same company that did the design for the one project, is the same company that's doing the master plan itself?
That is my understanding that this, let me say this, it's the same engineer that is working on the stormwater master plan has provided the information. So I don't have 100%.
We're hoping that they're talking to himself.
But hold on, Woodard and Curran's doing all the mapping.
Happy.
Half is doing the design.
On this project.
That was a
yeah.
design build.
Yes. Well,
And to kind of give some context to what I had said before, and you said it wasn't the master plan. It was September 2024, Wood and Kern came out, it was about 350 pages, almost all entirely focused on downtown in regards to relocation, in regards to Avalon. Now, it was a pre-designed study, but it's a ton of information in there that should definitely not be overlooked because it's already work that's being done and could provide context as we move forward. So talking about the stormwater plan in regards to downtown, a lot of this stuff has already been mapped. A lot of this stuff has already been discussed. So that would be a really good place to start. I don't think we're going in blind. There's a lot of information in there. Now, that was in regards to an assessment, but that's a totally different topic. But it is a pretty detailed report regarding downtown.
And that led into the mapping,
Yes.
so they could
Yeah.
figure out.
Yeah.
Right, and let me clarify even further. There's an engineer providing information for this public realm project as well, and that is the gentleman, and I'm sorry because I'm new, I don't remember where he's from, but he has been involved in all of this. So it is lining up pretty good in that case.
As far as I know, it drains into the lake, and it was designed to handle that
Water
8-inch
goes
problem.
downhill, pretty sure.
So all the rest of the stuff is going to be north. It's going to go into ponds north of Broad.
On each side, too.
Everything around is
Yeah.
basically 50 and 33 over there is that crown that he was talking about.
Yeah.
The water flows off in 4 different directions from, more or less, from that intersection. So everything here is going to flow here and then into there, ultimately.
Well, hopefully, the stuff on Orange won't come down here anymore with the new storm drains. They're going to set that up. We have another, well, you know, it's going to be down by you, the pond that takes it this way.
That's just
And the
state-
pond that takes it this way, because we do have a ridge going down the middle of the city, and it goes each way, and that's back to the mapping and back to the whole thing is how they're going to capture that and put it on each side, you know?
That's just the roads. That's all FDOT addresses is roads. It doesn't address property. And by state law, if rain falls on my property, I have to keep it on my property, right? And unless we manage from a global level the stormwater. I don't need to belabor this. I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not stirring trouble. It's not, well, I'm just asking questions because I don't understand. How are we doing this and we don't have the plan fully together yet?
Good question, and after you have this sit-down, it's going to be outstanding. Give me a call if you don't get it, all the
I'm
answers.
impressed that he knows what project management is. I mean, it's a win. It's a win.
Thank you.
I think those were fair points. I mean, I think we've realized that, you know, FDOT does a project, they have their stormwater. We do a project, we have our stormwater. But there's also that consideration of, in Florida, a commercial person wants to build something, they've got to either put it on their land or they work with the jurisdiction. So, again, these are complicated things, but, you know, it's healthy discussion, so I appreciate it.
Okay, we've beat that horse to death. Okay, move on to
Next
our next
project.
presentation, agenda item
Okay.
3.
Is that,
His presentation on train depot draft.
Barbara's going.
I know. Train depot draft business plan.
okay, so at the meeting in March, Tim, right after that, sent out the depot draft business plan. And the idea was to put it on this agenda and have a little bit of a discussion. Again, getting up to speed on this, I understand, a community group came together and they put this presentation together. Tonight, we can go through it, at least hit, hopefully, the high points. And again, this was a concept. I think ultimately, we are moving in the right direction by taking the deed to the train station, trying to get it up to code and in a refurbished condition, and we'll be bringing that to you, soon with more details. But we are working on that with the developer, and it's all moving along. So again, we're about to have an initial meeting to make sure that our planning experts, planning and zoning folks, everything meshes up. But part of this conversation, and just to sort of preface this a little bit, is, what do we see for the train depot? And this will have to involve community stakeholders as well, and the funnel our mayor was talking about, which is very important, because again, I agree, if you want something to fail, do it top down, right? Don't include people. So I'm totally on board with that, and I think the train station is that same, the depot is the same kind of thing. What we have to think about is this going to be an amenity surrounded by a private development, right, Avalon, or do you want it to be the keystone of the downtown, right? So there's difference there, and we may not answer that hopefully tonight, because that would be a very long meeting, but part of the idea is this opens a little door and says, could you do this? As we discussed at the last meeting, there's a lot of logistics when you're trying to make this into some kind of a restaurant or catering, again, I think folks did a good job on this, and they put a lot of heart into it, but it doesn't mean it's the ultimate solution. These are going to be further conversations, but at this point, we're about to deed over a 1/4 acre. We want to get this thing, beautiful again and up to code, and potentially put that, extension on it to make a space. And here are some ideas, that this previous group put together, for discussion tonight. So, again, I think this is somewhat of a blank slate, and we can create a wonderful amenity. I'll talk a little bit later in my notes about some of the ideas that have happened. I mean, I'll just tell you where I just came from. My last city that I worked for, we had a train depot very similar to this. We ended up leasing it to the private sector, and there's a candlepin bowling, there's a bar, there's a pizza shop, and an ice cream, all in it. And we stepped it up, and we started at $500 a month for those entrepreneurs to start their business, and they pay $4,000 a month to the city today because, they built their business. There's lots of stuff you can do when you own things, so it's good to own things. And I'll speak to this a little later as well. But also, you're always trying to determine what's the best use for the space, and I think that's what these folks looked at. So again, look at this, I think, as some ideas, and then hopefully y'all can have some healthy discussion about it. But again, a beautiful amenity, a historic, important building, and we're about to capture that and have our very important site control on that. So one of the ideas was to create the extension to the existing building as an event hall space. There were some ideas. Cities do this. You can also lease it out to somebody else to do it. Because remember, as we look at these ideas, having, been an assistant city manager, you realize that somebody's got to do this stuff, and like in my last city, it was the Parks Department, right? They rented out the space. They brought the tables. Were going to be, high tops? Was it going to be seating? These take staff. So if the city's going to manage it, you need staff. Otherwise, sometimes you lease these things out. Let the private sector manage it, right? But we maintain site control. So one of the ideas was the event hall. Some of the breakdown that was suggested was 40% as a visitor center and rail museum, artisan market, your handcrafted goods and that kind of thing, and then some meeting space as well, was recommended. The outdoor deck idea, I think it's a good idea. Sometimes if you were to go with sort of more of a food stall kind of situation, you might be able to get some sidewalk cafe tables out there. Potentially could work as a business incubator. Think of it as sort of like a mini Plant Street Market, where you get somebody comes in with a little idea, and then maybe they graduate from there to a larger space, in a private area. Those are ideas. Again, lots of potential on the deck, but remember, it's going to be surrounded by private development. So this will be an amenity in addition to that private development, which is Avalon, multifamily housing, commercial, et cetera, which is a bit of a question mark still because it's not, fully designed, as I understand. Not an expert on that. Tim will know more on that. But again, I do understand that we are going to own an island with conveyances and easements to access, but we will be surrounded by another development on that. The rail car kitchen, it's a cute idea, but I don't know the feasibility. I think the mayor spoke to that. Maybe like an ice cream shop might be easier to run out of there than a kitchen that can actually entertain. And again, I'm a straight shooter, but to do catering support for a haul out of a rail car is going to be difficult. I've had my experience with some of this stuff. So again, there's ideas. Do I like the idea of including a rail car? Absolutely. I think it's fantastic. I mean, if you go to the villages, they've got a rail car as a entertainment stage. That's an idea. There's lots of things you can do and get your hands on to tie in that historic aspect. Again, some kind of a snack bar, restaurant, maybe. But I think it was Mr. Jaycox that had brought up some challenges with that at the last meeting. You need parking, so again, it's an idea and it's a potential, but I don't want to spend too much time. A market square, some kind of thing like that. I think there is value in the plaza, but do we have multiple plazas? Because remember, we've got a stage at Lake David. We might have a stage at Festival Park when this downtown master plan comes through, right? We may want to have a little stage over there by the train station. Where do you want to have your market? Or are you going to have multiple spaces? If it's a large event, maybe it's at Festival Park. If it's a small concert, it's down at Lake David. There's nothing wrong with versatility. But again, does that become the primary market square? It could. My experience, keep the fees low or no fee to get your vendors, and then you go from there. So again, roll out, but again, is it something that maybe on the weekend, once the master plan is done, that we close down a street and we've got a real long market, you know what I mean? Or we have, like the block party kind of thing, or a concert in the street. I mean, there's so much potential, and that's why, I get a little excited about this stuff, but it's also daunting and overwhelming when we're talking about this. And that's why sometimes you need these consultants that have done it, in these areas, other towns that have developed. What I will say about our town is that it's got a fantastic set of grid streets, and we've got so much potential. It's not like we're starting out in a complete greenfield, but we also have a tremendous amount of opportunity with our grid pattern and some of the land that the city owns. So anyway, an idea of a market square around there. I don't want to go too much into this stuff. I mean, there's some cost projections and things, that come. But again, there is the potential for space. You're looking at the original structure of 1,000 square feet roughly, and then about 1,300 for the adjacent event hall. And then again, the rest of the stuff, maybe a 1,000-foot outdoor deck. But again, as far as a hard business plan, I think we need to understand what we want out of the train station, and then we can get a little bit more detailed. But these are some ideas. Let me flip through these just in case there's something we need to point out. Again, as we refine, we can look at, there are some grant opportunities, and, we may get some money from tourism grants as well. There are some projections. I don't want to get heavily into them because, again, at this time, not really understanding what the will of the board is. I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to talk about, return on investment just yet. You see, it was like a 20-some-odd page. Again, generally, these things aren't money makers, but if you're providing, parks don't make money either, right? But we have them. And the reason is it's an amenity that the community may like. It could serve as, any business or building that the city owns can serve as an incubator for businesses. So there is value there to that. Let me see what else. Again, I don't want to get too heavy into expenses. Like I said, there's ways you can do these things that they're eventually a good revenue builder. But yeah, I think that, okay, yeah, so that's that. But let me know if you want me to go back to anything or what, I guess my question to y'all is, what are you thinking as far as what you want that train station potentially to be as a best use? And then perhaps we can start to bring closer ideas, I guess.
Start with Dan. You have a comment?
Of course. I totally agree. I think that there's not really any point talking about these returns on investment unless we realize how we're funding the project moving forward. So when you look at the grants, like a special category grant, those are up to $1 million. Cities looks like they really only get about 500,000, but the cities seem to be the most commonly awarded because we have the most reliable backing and funding for that. Mm-hmm. So, but that is historic preservation, historic restoration. So the money is there. There's a lot to leverage, and I'm sure there's other grants that you know of that I don't, regarding historic preservation and restoration. But if we don't go down that path, then those grants aren't available. If we look at it as just a commercial space and we're not building to any historic specs, if we're not looking to get it on the registry, there's a lot of that stuff that goes away, but the building's cheaper. So I think, obviously, like, this is kind of a loaded question, and I wish we had some, the full group here, but my question would be, what's the rest of the boards? I mean, my opinion, I think there's a lot of money out there available to us for historic preservation, restoration. I think it takes a lot longer, just like this master plan, just like restoring this depot. If it takes us 5 years to do it right, then it should take us 5 years. I'm not in a hurry for that, but my vote is historic preservation, restoration. I'm curious what the rest of the board's looking for in regards to that, because that drives the funding, that drives everything. How we get this built and what we spec it out for, that's going to be what builds the business plan around it.
Mike?
Don't take this any way other than just trying to get information. You guys keep recycling the same stuff. This isn't a draft plan. This isn't a business plan. This is still glorified architectural junk. You can't put a rail car on anything but rails, and the rails are would be on the side of it, not behind it. So, rail car to put an OSHA rail car up there 60 feet long, you could only put 50 people in that restaurant per OSHA. And I gave this design to Tim. I pulled it right off the internet, and you still come back telling me it can have 150 people in it. And you got a deck on the back that you said is 900 plus square feet, but you have 2 outhouses on the back, a woman's and a men's room on the back, and you take on 400 square feet. You guys are you're not being practical here. And who owns the buildings over there right now? The parking lot and the audio building, and is that Avion's property?
No,
Avion?
that's a different owner over there, yeah.
So that they don't own that, and their plan is to put a building right next to that, which there's no room for. So I mean, you don't even know how much space that you're getting. I relatively know that there's 33 feet between that train depot and the next neighbor's backyard. There's no room to build anything there. So he had it open. His design was open air to his stores that were going to be beneath it. It's not. And the mayor keeps telling you, parking, 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 parking. Why is anybody going to show up to this at all? Because there's no place to park.
Do you mind if I comment on that, just being that I was involved in a lot of this? So just to cover the 150 people serving, that's serving the food hall. The serving is not done in the rail car, this concept, regardless of if it moves forward. The rail car is only there as a kitchen. So there's not meant to be people in there. That was never the intention. Maybe the wording's a little confusing in there. But the rail car is meant to serve the capacity for the food hall. or the entertainment space or wedding venue, whatever you want to call it. So that was the only concept there. For the parking is available directly behind this whole thing. Okay, so that is their whole lots. That is a lot for Avalon. Now, obviously, the discussion on how many spots would actually be available long-term is a good question. But the parking is not meant to be on, the majority of the parking is not meant to be on the street. The parking is behind that whole thing. You have two walkways between the depot and Avalon's mixed-use buildings on the left of the depot and on the right of or the north and the south of the depot. Those walkways to the back are where that parking is. So that's the concept. Now, there's not a whole lot of numbers to tell us how much parking the residents will actually need for these apartments units up top, but that's the concept. So just to
Based on what the
clarify.
mayor told us before, for every 10 tables, you need how many parking spots?
6.
6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
And just to be clear too, the space that we're talking about serving to is an event hall. So the event hall with some space to cater out of, that is a self-sustain, like this is, your caterers are the ones serving the people at the event hall.
Okay, you need 72 parking spaces just for the event hall.
That's probably realistic, yeah.
So
Yeah, and that is the question, is like, where are those people gonna go? I totally understand that.
Adrian
but this
is
is-
not
yeah.
suggesting giving all that area.
Yeah, but that's, again, this is a shared, in Avalon, the original discussion was that Avalon has, all their parking for their entire complex is available to the public. This is not private parking. So now that can get messy, I'm not disagreeing with that, but that is the original discussion, is that parking is available to public, anybody in the plaza as well. So.
Okay, but let's see. You're working off a design that somebody else came up with, who was donating stuff to us, and now that we're taking it and doing it ourselves, none of that applies. And you're still working off the same pictures and the same ideas that this came from the contractor, right?
Correct.
So he's not involved with this anymore. We're doing it all on our own, and you keep bringing back the same stuff to us.
Well, and I'm not trying to sell this to you. It was just said that we would present it because it was available. So again, honestly, that's what I'm trying to caution, is that this is very conceptual at this stage, so it would be premature to try to do a business plan at this stage, because there's other questions. And one of the things we said was, which I brought up previously, is we need downtown parking as part of our design, right? Because I'll be honest with you, in this country, we have a walking problem. We don't really have a parking problem. It's people don't want to walk. And that's okay. I just came from a city where we've been adding parking and adding parking. You need a variety. We've got wide boulevards like South Lake Avenue out there. It's a beautiful wide street. You can have street parking. But there's a certain customer that does not want to hunt and peck for their parking, and we're going to have to give them some offerings in the downtown where they can come in and park very easily. So again, I like to move fast, but sometimes you have to move slow through planning. And when I mentioned regional stormwater and downtown parking plans as part of this public realm, that's what I'm cautioning, is that we have to solve for parking. We have to solve for regional stormwater. Because I'm a straight shooter. I don't know that Avalon has all their stormwater figured out yet. That's one of the things that's questionable. So they might say they might want to put parking there, but guess what? If we don't have a stormwater answer for them, there's not going to be any parking. It's going to be stormwater, because, as you know, state of Florida, your commercial development, where are you putting your stormwater? That's what we're trying to solve for. So again, it's exciting, but it's also kind of overwhelming, because I feel like in some ways we're once again playing catch up on some of this stuff. But what I'm telling you is we've got a good team and we're going to move
Frank,
fast on it.
one thing you got to do is the agenda item says draft business plan. This is not a draft business plan. You have to sit there and say, this is the train depot as we have it right now. What will it cost to renovate that by itself? And then you have to move on to this addition, and because that requires a whole bunch of different stuff.
I agree, and I guess I can update you. So the next point is to make sure that we get site control, which is to take the deed for the quarter acre, which is defined, we know that. And then the next step is to start to look at the process of refurbishment to, again, what I think we should do is, get a design that the board agrees upon, bid it out, because design build, we're paying more than we probably need to, right? A design, bid it out, and build will always save you more money. When you design build, it's usually because you're under the gun, because you got to get it done, there's grant money. But in this case, I think we take a approach of, let's get a design, what the board wants to see, what the community is behind for this historic building. We put it out for bid, and we understand. Now, we have funding to do this. We can accomplish this if y'all, move the money around a little bit. But again, let's get a concept, a design,
Like a
a
heart
bid,
attack
and a
right now.
build. The other thing I'll say is that if you go down the historic road, I love historic buildings, but you are boxed in, and it is expensive thereafter for we just did a refurbishment of, oddly enough, a train. It was a caboose in Inverness. We assisted with it. And, boy, you were going through the state to determine what windows and what glass, and, so I agree with both, but if you want a flexible space, probably historical may not be. The historic look can be achieved, but maybe without, because once you're on that registry, it is tough, really tough. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. All you can say is, I'm new, and I'll check into that, okay?
My view on this has kind of been, it's blighted right now, fix the roof, fix the blight, then turn the discussion over to the residents of what do you want this to be? And then whatever the build out inside or the extension or anything like that can happen. But I think we're going down this draft, because this isn't a draft business plan. So I think I don't want to belabor it and kind of go over what Mr. J. Cox mentioned. But I do believe, I wouldn't be for kind of just turning this over into like a museum. I think there's a lot of great things that could come from it, but my priority would be fixing the roof, fixing the blight as much as we can, and then turning the discussion over to either a task force or the residents of what do you want in this, and then that's where that business plan would come out of. But that's all I have.
Well, I'm going to be the third man that says it's not a business plan. It's not personal. It's a bunch of pretty pictures. Again, I go back to, when will these concepts, these ideas be presented to the community? We must have buy-in in order for the community to come. So I don't know if while you're fixing the roof, fixing the stormwater, or doing whatever you be doing for this, maybe you at the same time can get input from the community to help determine where you need to go. Because if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So I see getting the input from the community to be incorporated into the business plan. That's all I want to say about it.
Okay, all right. Let me just no. First, let me defend that document. This was volunteers, right? I mean, we had a bunch of volunteers get together, go around and look at a lot of places, come back, and it was, give us your ideas. I don't know how it ever got from idea, scope document into a business plan, but when somebody put that business plan on there, it kind of took our attention away from, these are some ideas, that we should be considering. So these are ideas. Business plan, I think needs to come. I would get somebody from the restaurant business involved, at minimum of 9 square feet per person. If you're standing up, 12. If you're sitting down, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't work out on this path. I will go along with everybody here. I think I heard everybody here say, let's fix the old train depot now. We just did a survey, and what was number one on the survey? Fix the blighted areas in Groveland. That's what our public said, is fix the blighted areas. We have in front of us a bid, I think already, or a document that said we could get that restored for $287,000. It went up to $297 on the last document I got, but that still leaves $203,000 for around the outside, but I wouldn't expand it. I would just do that, because we don't know what's going to happen with Avalon.
Yeah.
And if we want to do a phase two, it should be in conjunction with Avalon commits and puts something out there. Otherwise, it's going to be off by itself. Right now, I'm not upset about it being by itself, because that's where the bike path dead ends into. That is the amenity for the bike path. I mean, just look what's gone on in Claremont, everywhere else. Now, if we want to put historic things in there, fine, but, you know, we need to have an amenity there that the bike people can, I don't care whether it's a soda shop or tires. I don't care, you know, but we've got to take advantage of the bike path. But I hope we can give some clear direction as the group here. Fix the damn station now. We'll figure out what goes in it later. Because it's just deteriorating more and more every day with that roof collapsed in there.
Mr. Mayor, are you looking for a consent? You looking for a consent to give him direction?
I can't make a,
No, I'm giving you a consent that we come to a consensus about directing Frank to just deal with the historic part of the train station in the business plan that he's going to develop now just for that.
just fix what we got.
Yeah, fix what we got.
Fix what we got.
I have something. And I would just say, and on what the mayor has said, I think if we did a listening session of the train station, we may get a good row or two of people in here. If we start renovating and fixing the blight, and when folks start going by, there's a huge sign that says, and this is our first workshop of what this is gonna be, this is gonna be full because people are gonna see things are actually happening. And I now have an opinion about what's gonna be inside. So just from the community input, I think if you fix the roof and you fix the blight initially, and you already have the day that they start fixing the roof, there's already a post on Facebook that day of, this is gonna be our first community meeting on what is the train, what the future of the train depot is gonna be. I think we could actually fill a room of input, because people are gonna be like, wow, they're actually gonna do
And all
something
the
about
huddles.
this.
People will want to know what the
Yep.
hell's going on. you know? I agree with you, 100%.
So does that consent thing work for you, Steve?
What's that?
I was just asking Steve if that consent to
I'm
direct
good
him to
with
do it.
immediately starting fixing the roof and the blight.
Okay, then,
And let me just, and along with that, we're waiting from the last meeting the answer back about using the building fund, which is so restricted, we can't use it on anything else, to fix the roof. Because the building fund, you can go into blight and fix it, right? And that would leave up the rest of the 500 grand to do other things, because we got like $2.5 million in there that we can't do anything with because it's so restricted.
And that was I don't know if Anita was working on it or if you all were working on it, but that was a question that we had from the last meeting was, could we at least use the building fund for the blight of the roof?
I think this is his first time.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That's what was the discussion, if we can
And
get
I'm, just to give
is
you
our
more
first
background,
time.
I'm saying that
Yeah.
because the 500 grand isn't there. The 500 grand is half of the sale of the right-of-way, right? It's coming out of our general fund into C.R.A., because for some reason, even though it's in the C.R.A., that money doesn't go in to the C.R.A. So we need to get started now. We need that building fund, money.
Yeah, we'll look into it. We'll make sure you got it.
You want to go over this, Dan?
So that's kind of where my mind has been for the past like 2 months is, we keep talking about a lot of the budgeting aspect, but we haven't actually voted on a budget for this, right? So, or where specifically, because I've heard multiple things about it coming from, the fund from Kroger, that we've got money sitting there. We got money coming from FDOT. So I think that that's a really good place to start. So yes, I agree, it needs to be fixed. So if I were to, look for a consensus, would be that Frank come back in our next meeting, not necessarily a building plan, but a restoration plan for the current structure, what those costs are, how we're going to bid it out, and in some rough timeline, but also more specifically, where is this money coming from? So we can just agree on that. Once we agree on that, we know where we're getting that money, what we can allocate, and how we're going to bid out the work. And if we just say, hey, this is not, the initial work is not restoration work, it's repair, then we just have to move forward with that. But unless we have that, we don't.
Can you add, you build on that to say, even before we get all the restoration work, fix the damn roof?
That's what I mean.
Just fix
That's what
the
I mean.
roof.
Stabilize the structure.
Yeah,
Yep.
because we need to
Correct.
get that, because it's just it's going to be more expensive.
And I'm all about, I think I've explained this before here, and I was definitely explaining to Tim and Frank, I'm a baby steps person. This is a long game. So I would look for a consensus to adjust that for the repair and stabilization of the roof and any other structural issues, and where that money is going to come from. So on our next vote, we can vote for a budget to move it forward.
Okay, one addition, we have to include the lot split on that, right?
No, lot split indeed is already approved. That's done. That was the last council meeting.
Okay, so that's already done, okay.
Right, it was approved by this board, but it has not been accomplished yet through the legal transfer process.
They're still going through the survey and all that
Right,
stuff, right?
so,
Yeah, it's-
and we're working on that with the developers, so that's the other thing is we do need site control before we start to pull these levers, so again, I know.
Do you have a
it's-
time frame that would be more realistic than next meeting?
I mean, I think, I don't think it would take us more than probably a month or two to accomplish this. I mean, it's got to be recorded and all that, but honestly, planning and zoning is handling it, but we are working on that. Again, site control is the main concern, and I've heard you all. I think it makes perfect sense to work with the structure you have before adding, why double down when we don't even know what, so loud and clear. I will also say, I believe the 500,000 was already adopted for this project. That happened through council, or it's coming on 6/1 maybe.
Well, it was in there last year, but it was taken out.
Okay, but I think it's coming back to you on 6/1 at the council.
Okay, because I think they thought we were going to get the money last year, and so
Okay,
when I looked at it, it was
okay.
zero.
Yeah.
I choked, and then they said, well, it's because the deal hasn't gone through on the land yet.
And again, we got a lot of things in the hopper right now, but the idea is get site control and then do this refurbishment. So Tim is on board with that. But again, I definitely hear you about focusing on the existing structure and fixing the blight. So loud and clear.
Barbara, did you consent? I didn't hear your voice.
I didn't know if he was finished making the consent, but yes.
I was, and I'll reiterate, that consent was to come back, if we want to say 2 meetings, come back with a specific business plan, financial structure, all that built into it, how we're going to restore and move forward with fixing the roof and any other structural issues to get the whole structure stabilized.
Include a business plan.
All we need is a shell done right now.
Yeah, we just need the shell, so that wouldn't include the business plan of what.
No. What I'm saying, I don't mean,
Fix it,
I'm just saying,
stabilize it.
financially, how are we going to get that done?
Stabilize the building.
How are we going to bid out for it? What are we looking for specifically, whether it's historic or not? And I understand the leaning towards not historic, I get that, especially from an expediency
Like
standpoint.
Hollywood, we'll have the outside, but the inside.
But yeah, I don't think we want to wait until, September or October, the next time a hurricane comes through and does even more damage. And I've said that, I think I said that 3 years ago.
Or even the summer rains.
Or just summer rains, it's going to continue to cause more damage to the structure.
That is fair.
Okay.
I consent.
Thank you.
But I do have a question.
Yes.
When the roof is repaired, will there be any marketing research done where you get at least 3 quotes?
Yes, it will be an RFP process for that. So we will, again, I'm not big on, I like to put things out for bid. That's how you get your best prices. So, and again, that was the plan from Tim, is an RFP for that work to be done.
Okay, just checking. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 4, C.R.A. Task Force update. Who do we, oh, Frank.
Okay, so I just wanted to let you know that we have reached out to the folks on the C.R.A. task force, and we are starting that process of, these are meetings that will be recorded, there'll be minutes taken, they'll be on Zoom, so it is a little bit of a formal process, but we've reached out to the folks. We're going to determine how often and where to meet and go over some orientation about the state sunshine law and these things that apply. We'll have the city attorney there for that initial meeting to go over that. Additionally, this was a task force laid out for the purpose of renewing and updating the redevelopment plan for the C.R.A. And if the initial time frame of 6 months is not enough to do that, then you all can extend that. But the idea is to do that redevelopment plan, and again, align it for where we want to be as we look at this public realm, and to make sure that we are planning to be ready for what that growth, which was mentioned earlier, and what the downtown will be. So this redevelopment plan should really take into account the realignment and the public realm idea, basically. So that, just a short update on that.
Can I
Yes.
just ask for a favor on that when the task force comes in?
Yes.
I got to walk Blue Street, that whole area down there that is in the C.R.A.
Uh-huh.
At one time I was told it wasn't. It is in the C.R.A., and that's the most dilapidated area we have.
Okay.
And there's people back there that really need help. And if you want to talk about raising value, we need to take a walk back down there. I'm doing it with one of the county commissioners here in the next couple of weeks, but
Okay.
we need to quit driving by that area
Yep.
and get back there. There's the nicest people you ever ran into back there, and would love to. They're growing sugarcane back there and stuff.
Oh,
It's
wow.
amazing, but we need to not only worry about down here. People drive by that going back and forth.
Yep.
And it doesn't make the city look very good. We need to help out in that area.
Okay, fair enough. All right. I guess new business. There is no new business, so should we go into the C.R.A. manager's report?
Yes.
Okay. I took very good notes at the first meeting, so I'll go over some of the things that were mentioned because I do like to get back to y'all when you have questions. But I just want to make sure that I introduce Noah Robles. He's a local guy, grew up in the area. He is our economic development and C.R.A. coordinator. He has an undergraduate degree in political science and a master's in urban planning. So just wanted to welcome him to the team, and he's been great and jumped right in. So say a few words, you can if you want to
Welcome.
the podium. Yeah, say hi, Noah.
Step up.
All right, yeah, perfect. I've met a few of you guys already. I haven't had the chance to meet all of you yet, but it's been a great 3 weeks. I think it's my 4th week starting today, so it's been really awesome. Like Frank said, I am local. I lived in Mascot my entire life, basically. Moved there when I was 5 years old. Went to Gray Middle, South Lake High School, so I'm very close to this community. This is very important to me. So moving back, I didn't move back. I was gone for a couple years, got back in town. Feels really good to be back and be part of the community that I grew up in that made me. So looking forward to it, guys.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
We're easygoing, you can tell, right? We're an easygoing crowd.
Besides Jay Cox.
Well, that's good. At the August 24th C.R.A. meeting, we will do the financial audit. That was completed, but we'll go through that at that meeting. The mayor, I believe, had asked at the meeting in March about the Avalon development and the economic development impact of that agreement that we have with them. I just wanted to touch base and say that our finance department is working on a forecast of how that will affect the city, how those funds will need to be dedicated, the future TIF revenues. That is a 30-year agreement. I did read the agreement myself. It's a 30-year agreement. There's a 50% TIF handover, basically, but that comes with investment obligations by the developer. It's a pretty weedy agreement, but there's things that they give, there's things that we give, and so on. But again, that is something that finance is going to work on to make sure that that is very clearly, outlined.
And they'll cover everything, right, from the stormwater?
I don't-
I'm serious. 'Cause
I
they-
don't
they
know, yeah,
They
I
don't
mean-
have to do anything on that, and all that we have to hook up, all the lanes, the turn lanes and stuff, anything that's not on that property is, I just want to make sure we go by that contract.
Right, and again, I honestly mainly paid attention to the increment, because that's what, the C.R.A., it's the lifeblood of the budget in the C.R.A. But again, TJ is also involved in that, because there are public works, as you referenced, so, but again, TJ and finance, I should say, are working together on those commitments. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that we heard you at that meeting. So that's good. There was the question about the economic benefits of selling city-owned properties in the C.R.A., so I just wanted to touch base on that. Again, Florida statutes, the idea is that private investment should be, fostered in the C.R.A. What I would say is there are benefits sometimes to having site control. So if we wanted to do a business incubator, let's say we got our hands on the Edge building, right? That would be a pretty neat Plant Street market, and we could control it. So that's an advantage, right? We could incubate businesses. They start there, and then they start leasing commercial space. There's demand. So again, there are pros and cons. The other thing to consider is, yes, it brings in some revenue, but I wanted to mention that in Florida, when you have a government-owned building that's used for commercial purposes, it becomes subject to ad valorem taxes. So you don't always have to give up site control to get the ad valorem. So there's been lots of famous cases, and where I just came from, we had a hospital that was a government-owned entity, but then it got leased to HCA, and you talk about tax value. So that city's doing good. So again, there are different ways to split that. Part of this concern, as looking at the public realm, would be, let's solve for parking and stormwater before we start to sell off, because it's very hard to get that stuff back. So anyway, just wanted to touch base on that, and I'm happy to have further discussions if anybody wants to meet, on those particulars, but that's all I have for now.
Hey, great. We're going in reverse order. Attorney, do you have anything?
I was going to say, if you want us to go on to do the board first. No, this is our first C.R.A. meeting since we've taken over from Anita. And we'll get back to you about that building fund question and anything else you have for us. So we're happy to be here for as long as you'll have us.
Your dialogue was outstanding. Thank you. Dan?
A question about the parking. So the dirt lot, right across from, right there on the northwest corner of 19 and 50. So that's currently a public lot. Right now, at least from my perspective, I stare at it about 70 hours a week. It's not really utilized a whole lot. So I don't know if we have some long-term plans for that lot. I think we're paying $1,000 a month, kind of peanuts, in the grand scheme of things. I get that. But do we have a plan for that lot to make any improvements to? I know we're leasing it from Coyote Rojo. What is the plan? Because it's not being utilized right now.
Yeah, I mean, again, being so new to the city, eventually the question is who maintains site control over it? Is there a public purpose to own that? I mean, honestly, I don't have that answer, except that we need to consider that if that's the parking that we need, or if that's some other value, then maybe a conversation needs to take place with that. At this point, again, I sort of inherited that as it's an overflow, but I think that's a very pertinent question and probably something we should discuss, because it's a strategic piece of property.
It is a very strategic piece of property. So
Originally, Dan, that was going to be our employee parking, so we could leave up all the other parking spaces for the client. We wanted to free up for all of our businesses parking, and that was where it was, but somehow it never got to be the employee parking, so maybe we should revisit that, because every parking space, a lot of people do the dollars by parking space, the closer, the higher the dollars. We're taking up some of the most expensive parking spaces with us, rather than just parking over there and coming across the street. So maybe we need to re-look at that whole thing, and if it creates revenue, then you can come back and say, good job. If not, we'll dump it.
Yeah. I would say I understand why it's not being used, okay? It's a chaotic intersection. So I'm not necessarily saying that should be staff parking. I do agree that ideally staff is parking in a more, a less needed spot, right? If it's a car sitting there for 4 hours and then going to lunch and come back, sitting there for 4 hours, I think it would be helpful to see them somewhere else. But I also think we need to take into account employee safety. That lot, someone was, unfortunately passed away recently in that intersection. And that's something that, again, when we're making these decisions, those are decisions that have to be considered fully. Is it just an inconvenience issue, or is it people who feel uncomfortable being there? Because nobody uses it. I mean nobody in staff, none of the elected officials, nobody. And I've tried using it before, and it's very inconvenient.
Across there, you don't say, hey, be careful. Don't walk across there.
In January.
So, safety matters.
Now that they repaved it, the
but so
things
does
don't go
fun.
up and down
Yes.
like that to walk across.
In January, they sent an email out saying that was the new employee staff parking, and so far, no one's been using it because no one's enforced that. Now, every time I've gone to Lake Davis, I've parked in that parking lot, and I've crossed that street to come.
Every time?
Every time, and I haven't had a trouble.
Fair enough.
So,
Yeah. And I think it does take everybody setting the example.
Yeah, we just have
but-
to all get together on the same
Yes.
page, that's all.
Yes. So that was one of my questions about parking. And I'll say it in the sense of getting a consensus. I think having a plan for that, if I can get a consensus to get staff to have a plan for that space. I think it's such a low-hanging fruit, but it's something that can make an impact one way or another. So,
As a step one.
yes. Cool. I think I did have something else, but I'm gonna move on. So go ahead.
We'll come back.
We'll come back.
I need a little bit of direction here. I've never actually seen the plans for this apartment complex. But if there's 500 apartments, there has to be at least 500 parking spaces for 500 apartments. By code, I believe it's 2 parking spaces for each apartment. I could be wrong. And then everything underneath it is commercial space, and they require 5 to 6 parking spaces per each commercial space. So if it's open to the public, they've already filled it with their own public. So we're not going to get to use any of their parking spaces unless they're putting 2,000 or 3,000 parking spaces over there, and I don't really think that's in the plan. Someone needs to go back and look at what their proposed plan was for that area before you start thinking that anybody can park over there. We shouldn't ever think of allowing anything to block the line of sight of this train station. It should be seen from everywhere. You should be able to see it from Lake David. You should be able to see it. We shouldn't allow anything to be put there to block it, because then it's going to be just something in between something. So that's all I got to say about that.
I think that's absolutely fair, and I'll tell you where we came from. The last city I worked for, we moved ours 1,500 feet exactly for that reason.
No report.
We are in council reports, right? Council reports.
No, Director of C.R.A. reports. This isn't council, this is C.R.A. board.
Okay, we're on reports.
We're in reports. He's trying you tonight.
Potato, but yes.
I have no report.
Oh, wow. Way to go, way to go. A couple things, just, because I didn't want to bring it up earlier, but along with the, let's build on what you just said, along with the train station look, from the bypass to Broad Street will be different after the bypass goes in. It won't be this, people coming down there. So the opportunity for reconstruction not only goes down Broad, but it also goes down these two areas, and I would think that if we do it right, we don't need all these stoplights for people to get jammed up if we control the traffic by the size of the road and make sure that the trucks don't get down there. And I would I love all the creative ideas, but we just need to have a reality check on how much money we actually have. We need to kind of take care of what we've already done. I mean, we've got the splinter out there. We haven't got the sign. The splinter doesn't look very good, doesn't look like the picture that we originally had. The butterfly garden, the Florida area over here. I think we need to start reinvesting in what we promised and not get a lot of stuff layered on. I'll be interested to see what the Avalon financials come back at, because I think now we're giving a discount to any apartment where 1 or 2 bedrooms to $7,000 instead of $13,000 on the impact fees, which I guess if you're in an apartment and you flush the toilet, it's half as much going to the $119 million plant. But we'll look at that. I've seen 3 plans from Avalon. I don't know which one they're using. I hope they're using the 535, because that's the one that they got approved. If it's the 320 or the 425, don't do the financials on that.
Right.
Do it on the plan that was approved. Had a very cool session at Altamont, because they're totally integrated with AI, not as a replacement, but as how to seek through information. And some of their survey information you need to get with Tim. All of us should be looking at that, where we can do surveys and it can pick out just keywords and find out for us, on a blanket survey what we need to understand, and we don't have to go hire consultants and all that kind of stuff. That is really, some of that AI stuff is pretty phenomenal, not as a replacement to people, but as a way to get more information quicker. But I would remember, we've got the storm drains. We got about $2 million in the bank, right? What is the total? I didn't hear the financials tonight. I think it was close to $2 million in the bank. The last quote I got for storm drains was $10 million for downtown only. And so when we start talking about all this other stuff, no more than 500 grand is going to come out of the fund, because that fund owes $39 million. We're in worse shape there than here. So let's just keep our eyes on making things look like they should, instead of going out and getting a lot of new things that then we have to keep up and things. That would just be my advice. I think that's going to come up at our council meeting on our path forward. But let's make sure we get the financials out to everybody. I think we should have that before each meeting, so we know exactly where we are when we're talking some of this stuff, because it's easy to have ideas, but boy, it's hard sometimes to finance them. Okay?
Definitely, yep. I think it's important to have the financials out. Yep, you got it.
All right. You said none. Did you have anything, clerk?
Stephen, do you have anything?
No.
Okay.
I'm good.
He said no.
Okay.
If Barbara was running it, she's just like, we go through the agenda.
Barbara's over here like this.
And we get through. We get the work done and we go.
I do have one question. It could be a very simple one, just something that I'm trying to understand. And I think, Barbara, I believe you were involved with it initially. The Community Land Trust for those 3 homes, the
Yes.
affordable housing over there off Main. Who is the governing board for that trust?
Well, see, what had happened was, Dwayne, Pastor Patty Opperly, Steve Smith, Nicole Moses, who's principal at at Groveland Elementary. I was on it, Jeremiah, and I believe Bridget. But the Community Land Trust has now been turned over to a realtor who is handling the sale of the marketing and sale of the property.
Okay, and that's the reason I asked. I saw about 2 weeks ago, those properties went up for sale. They're being, and again, the only reason I'm asking is because it is within the C.R.A. boundary, and affordable housing is a big discussion. So this is just for my own edification. Originally, those homes were advertised for around 230,000. And I guess, and I actually have someone who I spoke to recently who went through that process, and then was not able to get onto that. And then they went up for 250,000. So I guess my question is, who's making those decisions? Who went to the real estate agent and said, we're now listing it for a higher price, given that the affordable housing conversation is such an important one?
Steve Smith would be your point of
Steve Smith,
contact for
okay.
that.
And that's with is he with New Beginnings, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
okay.
the reason they were on the market, but we weren't able to get people, I believe it was like a 400 and some credit rating.
It's actually quite a bit higher. It's actually higher than FHA. It's 620 is the minimum credit rating. Yeah, it's actually hard. And this is me just trying to educate myself. I'm not really making any statement, but again, being that this is probably something, I know there's more property around that Groveland owns under the C.R.A. This will probably be an ongoing conversation. Me personally, and maybe this is something you and I don't know, or you know, I can get a little bit more explanation from Frank or somebody else. Given that these properties are for sale, they are complete, the construction is done, this is something, from my understanding, the board should have been, an actual governing board should have already been elected. And I think that from the public's perception, again, somebody coming into my personal business and kind of explaining them the frustration with the process, I think that that's something that probably should be managed. And again, given that this is within the C.R.A., I think it's something we should be aware of. But not making any statement, I think that decisions are already being made with homes that are already built with a board that should have already been elected.
They weren't Habitat for Humanity homes?
No.
No,
These
it's-
were it was a land trust between the city of Groveland and New Beginnings.
Correct.
And there are going to be, it's my understanding, that there will be more built in that area.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I was asking, because I know there's more space. I know New Beginnings actually owns property right behind it. And, you know, given that it's supposed to be a 30% of your income, and that's the cost of your mortgage and the cost of utilities attached, that 250 does not match what was recently presented to us when it comes to an average median income for this downtown area. I know there's a higher average median income for North, 2719, but being where we're at, I feel like my mind would be these, again, knowing that there's a governing board who's actually making these decisions, and it's not one person deciding to set a price on those homes.
Because everybody's going to think it's Groveland.
Because everybody's going to think it's Groveland. And there's already perceptions. I had somebody who, again, came in and talked to me about not being able to get in, and then another person coming in again to talk about a different side, a different opinion of that.
When they came to you, just a thought.
Sure.
When they came to you, did they address their credit worthiness?
It actually wasn't a credit worthiness issue. It was an overall pricing issue. It was more, they were credit worthy. However, the cost of the home, given that they own the land, and there's a good reason for that, but just the whole breakdown in that,
Income.
the debt to income didn't match that 30%, which was originally discussed in their contract, in their bid, New Beginning, so.
Okay.
So just, again, maybe it's something you bring. I know we can't necessarily discuss it outside of here, but if you have other insight, I'm open to it. I'm just trying to understand
Okay.
it.
Well, I will try to get you some additional information.
I appreciate that. That's it.
Well, seeing no more business, is there any public input? We have one member of the public out there. Are you awake? Any public input? I know. Okay, adjourn.